everyone, and welcome to the Eddie V. Gray Wetlands Center. My name is Gina, and I'm the Education Coordinator here at the Wetlands Center. Now, we're located in Baytown, Texas, and we're open to the public Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Saturdays from 10 to 4. Now, we are free, so feel free to come on in with your families and have a look around. Today, though, we're going to be learning about reptiles, and reptiles belong to the subphylum Vertebrata, which means that these animals all have a backbone. Took your hand and touched your spine, you'll notice that we have one also. We're not reptiles. Reptiles have a special set of characteristics, and they belong to the class Reptilia. Now, reptiles include things like lizards, turtles, alligators and crocodiles, and even snakes. Reptiles have the same characteristics. So first, they are cold-blooded, which simply means that they get their heat or their body temperature from their surroundings. They don't make it themselves like we do. Another good science word for that would be ectothermic. So they get the heat from the outside of their body. They're also going to be covered in scales. Those scales are going to act like a protective barrier on the outside of their body. They're also going to give them camouflage and the ability to blend in with their surroundings. And last, they lay eggs. Okay, now some of these snakes are going to lay the eggs on the ground and move away. Other snakes are going to keep those eggs inside their body, and when they hatch, it'll look like they're giving birth to live young. Now we call these two different types of egg laying oviparous, which means they lay the eggs, like say a chicken would on the outside of their body, or ovoviviparous, where they hold the eggs on the inside of their body. Now we have a special treat. Some of our snakes laid eggs in late May, and one of them is hatching today. So I'm going to go get that, and we're going to take a good close look at it. Here at the Wetlands Center, several of our snakes have laid eggs. Here you can see that one of the eggs has pipped. It's used an egg tooth, just like a bird, to cut through the outside of its eggshell, which is very soft and leathery, and is starting to hatch. Now these are going to be western rat snakes, formerly known as the Texas rat snake. The other eggs are expected to come a couple weeks later, and you may be asking yourself, why do they have those purple X's on them? You have to be very careful when you pick up a reptile egg, because those eggs can't be shifted or turned like a bird egg. If we do that, the baby inside wouldn't survive. So again, here is that baby rat snake making its new way into the world. So now that we've seen one of those really cool, cute eggs hatching, we're going to talk about their backbone. So what I have with me is the spine of a snake. This is a model, it's not a real one, but we could tell that this one is venomous because it does have these hinged fangs in the front. Most people don't realize that snakes have a backbone like this. It's very intricate, and most of their body is made up of their spine with the ribs, and a very small portion of it is its tail. So if we look right here, you'll notice that this is the only part without any ribs, and that's its tail. So if you ever get the opportunity to hold a snake, make sure you're extra gentle with them, because if we accidentally squeeze, we could break some of these tiny bones. All right, now we're gonna meet one of our snake ambassadors here at the Wetlands Center. His name is Oink. He gets his name because of the shape of his face. Oink is a western hognose snake, and his nose turns up like a pig. So of course, we had to give him a piggy nose. Now, he's right back here in this tank, so I'm gonna get him out and show you guys a closer look. All right, guys, so this is Oink. Take a good look at that face. He's got that cute upturned nose that we talked about, and he uses that for digging. Now you'll notice Oink is sticking out his tongue. Snakes do this so that they can smell the air. That's right, guys, they use their tongue to smell. They have a special organ in the roof of their mouth called the Jacobson's organ. It looks like two slits. And if you notice, when that tongue comes out, it has two parts, a left and a right side. It's called a forked tongue. And when it goes out into the air, it collects pheromones or scent particles and places them on their tongue, and it goes back into the Jacobson's organ, and it tells them where those scents have come from. Now, Oink is tickling my finger right now with his tongue, but he's not trying to eat me. Okay, Western hognose snakes, their favorite foods in the wild are toads. Now, here at the Wetlands Center, he isn't fed toads, he's fed pinky mice. And he has to accomplish getting that little tiny mouse down through his neck without using his hands, okay? So he can't cut up his food with a fork and a knife like we can. So instead, he uses his incredibly flexible jaw to inch its way down and into the throat. Once it's down in here, he'll squeeze it using his strong neck muscles, and it ends up into his stomach. Now, these snakes, because they're cold-blooded, they don't eat very often. Here at the Wetlands Center, they get fed once a week. That's it. Pretty easy. Hi. Now, one of my favorite things about this snake is what it does in the wild when it encounters something that might want to harm it. The first thing that it will do is it'll flatten out the sides of its head, making it look like it has this hood, and it will blow air out of its mouth, making a loud hissing sound. Now, if that's not enough to scare away a potential predator, the next thing that it will do is it will flip over on its back, show off this dark belly, blow its body full of air, let its mouth open up, he'll stick his tongue to the side, he'll even make this really bad smell come out of what's called the cloaca. You'll notice it's yellow on this snake, and it will make people think that this animal is dying in front of them. So they're almost like opossums, right? Those animals that can play dead when threatened. And when it thinks that its threat is gone, it'll flip back over and slither away. Now, Oink doesn't do any of those behaviors because he's very used to being handled by people. One thing that I want you to take a look at is his pattern. You'll notice that some people might think it looks like a rattlesnake. And all snakes will do a tail shake where they'll hit the tail against the ground, and that might also help to protect this snake because it kind of looks like another snake, and it can attempt to make a noise like that snake. So reptiles have a wide range of adaptations that help them to survive in their habitats. Now, Oink would come from an area where it's very hot and very dry. So to cool his body during the day, he's going to use that nose to bury himself beneath the ground. It'll help to cool him off. And then when it's nighttime, he's going to come outside and hunt. Now when it's cold, like in the winter, he'll also burrow beneath the ground because it's warmer there. So let's go ahead and say goodbye to Oink, and we'll move on to our next animal ambassador. Okay, so we've met our snake friend, and now we're going to meet the turtle. Now, turtles have a special set of adaptations that make them very unique to class Reptilia, and it has to do with their shell. So what we have here is a model of a turtle shell, and you'll notice that its backbone goes right down the center of the top part of its shell, called the carapace. So oftentimes we see turtles leaving their shells in cartoons and TV shows, and that's simply impossible. It'd be like us trying to leave our backbone. We can't. Okay? The next thing that you might notice is that it has all these lines. Those are its ribs. So our ribs have spaces like this in between them, and the turtle shell, those ribs have come together and fused to form the outer portion of its shell. That is one of their most unique adaptations that they have. Now, this shell is pretty cool. I'm going to show you one that is really amazing. This shell came from an alligator snapping turtle that was estimated at being over 100 years old. When we flip it over and look at the inside, we can see its spine very well, and we can see its ribs. Now this shell is what protected it and allowed it to survive for so long in the wild. Now we can also see some evidence that it got into some very interesting maybe fights or activities, things like that may have hurt it. So if you look closely, there's bite marks in the shell. So you can see that it's been through a lot in its 100-year life. It has all of these bite marks and wounds, but its shell protected it the entire time. Now, the turtle that I have with me today that I'll be sharing is a turtle that lives on land, and they're called box turtles. Now, here in Texas, we have two kinds of box turtles. The first one is the ornate box turtle. They have a very beautiful shell. It's often black with these beautiful yellow starbursts. Here in our area, I don't see those too often, but what we do find are the eastern or three-toed box turtles. These turtles have 3 toes on each of the back feet, and it has a much more brown shell. This gives them a better ability to blend in with their surroundings. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out our eastern or 3-toed box turtle so you guys can check them out a little bit. So the first thing that we'll notice is that it has a raised ridge right here on the top portion of its shell. This is where its vertebrae is. It has these scutes on the outer portion of the shell that help to protect the bone. Now, we can see that he does have 3 toes on each of his back feet, maybe if he'll stop wiggling it around. You can count those toes. There are 3 of them. His front feet have 4. When we look at his face, you'll see his eyes, and his mouth is a beak-like structure, almost like a bird. Now, the unique portion of his shell actually isn't really much to do with the top. If you look at the bottom, it has this line. This is called a hinge, just like a door has one so it can open and close. This turtle has the ability to close his head and his front legs all the way inside of his shell. I'm going to try and make him do that for you. So if I touch him on his face, you'll see that he'll close up the bottom part of his shell. You can't see his face at all. That is an amazing adaptation for living on land, because unlike turtles that can swim away very quickly in the water, this turtle's not as fast and able to get away from potential predators. So to protect that most important organ of his body, that brain, he'll seal his head and his legs up inside his shell and wait for danger to pass. Now, box turtles, like I said, they live on land. They're starting to become less and less prevalent, so we just don't see them around as often. And Texas Parks and Wildlife is currently doing a Texas Turtle Watch program. So if you ever see a 3-toed or an ornate box turtle, they would like for you to go to Texas Turtle Watch and fill out a little bit of information on what the temperature was like, was it raining, where did you find it, what time of day it was, so they can start to keep track of these turtles to make sure that they're not threatened or endangered in our area. So let's go ahead and say goodbye to this turtle, and we'll pull out our next one. So we met our 3-toed box turtle. Now we're going to take a closer look here into our pond and look at some of the aquatic turtles that are swimming around. In the pond we have red-eared sliders, we have musk turtles, there's a spiny softshell turtle in here. We also have a young snapping turtle or common snapping turtle in the pond as well. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at that. So here in the pond, you'll see that there's a red-eared slider. They're named for that red mark where an ear would be. Turtles don't have an external ear opening. They do, however, have the 3 tiny bones that all vertebrates have that help them to feel vibrations through their bones. Now he's trying to hide from us, which is a really unique adaptation that these turtles will use. They'll find a dark area so that the top of their shell will blend in with their surroundings. Now other turtles, if you look down back here, underneath this rock, you'll see another one. This is a yellow bellied slider hiding right under here. Isn't he beautiful? Again, they're using these dark colored rocks to help them blend in. Now, you'll see that this red-eared slider is swimming around. Aquatic turtles have webbed skin in between their toes. It helps them to swim more easily through the water. You'll also notice that they have claws on their front feet. Those claws will be used in courtship rituals. They'll fan each other's faces with them, And if the female likes the male, she'll allow him to stay there. Otherwise, she bites him and swims off. Now, I know that we have another turtle trying to camouflage and blend in, so we're going to take a look this way, and you're going to see a musk turtle. Now, musk turtle's common name is a stink pot because they kind of are tiny like a pot, and they smell really bad when you pick them up, which is where they get the musk part of their name. Now, this is an adult turtle. They don't get very large, but they also have those webbed toes. And again, it's using these darker colored rocks to help camouflage. Now, let's look over here. I happen to know that there is a young snapping turtle living beneath this rock. Now, he's pretty shy. There's his face. He's using this cave made by rocks in here to help hide and protect his body. Snapping turtles have a very small plastron or lower portion of their shell, and that's because they typically use the ground to protect the soft underside of their body, so they don't need as protective of a lower shell. He has an extremely long neck so that he can just lift his head up out of the water instead of revealing his entire body. Now, we'll go ahead and take a look this way in our pond. And while this isn't a turtle, it's definitely another reptile. This is a young American alligator between 2 and 3 years old, and he's using the ripples in the water to help camouflage his body. Okay guys, our next group in class Reptilia that we're going to talk about are our lizard friends. And the lizard skeleton shows that they have their legs, and they have a tail and their skull. And lizards are really cool. In our area, we're most likely going to see things like the green anole or the now invasive brown anole. You might even find some skinks running across the ground. We're going to share a non-native species, which means it's not from our area, and it's called the bearded dragon. Now, bearded dragons come all the way from Australia and are given the name bearded dragon because when they are upset or trying to protect or show dominance, they puff out their chin area and it turns black, so it looks like a beard. And then they also have a bunch of spikes that go down their side that give them a dragon-like appearance. So I'm going to grab our friend Ziggy for you. And like I said, this guy is from Australia, so he's got these really beautiful yellow colors that help him to blend in with his desert surrounding. Now at the moment, his throat is a little bit black right now, and he's puffed up just a little bit, so he might be a little unsettled about being on the camera today. But Ziggy has some really awesome structures that all lizards have. So if we look at his skull, you'll see those holes right behind the eye, right back here. Those are his ears. So unlike snakes and turtles, the lizards have an external ear opening, so he hears incredibly well. He also has his eyes on the side of his head, which tell us that he's kind of a prey species. So in the wild, this animal is known for living up in the brush, so he gets high up in the air. So anytime I'm holding him, he feels most comfortable when he's held higher, or he'll climb to my shoulder. Sometimes he'll try and climb down my back when he's being extra naughty. But he does like to get a little bit higher in the air. Now, because he lives in the desert, water's pretty scarce. So to make it easier for this animal to capture water when it does rain, they have some unique adaptations on their skull that help them to do that. So let's try and get a look at it. You'll notice that he's got a valley in between his eyes here. So when it rains, it will roll in between his eyes, down across his nose, and straight into his mouth. That allows him to get more water during those rainy periods. Now, other things that he has that help him to live in a desert environment are his scales. Okay, so all of the animals we've seen today are covered in scales. His scales are very dry and rough, and that helps to prevent him from losing too much water. If he had less rough scales and that weren't so dry, water would be able to move more easily through them. It also helps to protect him against the rough environment that he lives in, so he doesn't get all banged up. Now, Ziggy has this awesome tail here that he uses for balance. So when he's climbing and moving around, he can move his tail side to side to help him balance on some unstable logs and sticks. Now you'll notice he's gotten very comfortable just hanging out on my shirt. This is one of Ziggy's favorite things to do. All right, Ziggy, are you ready to say goodbye? Last but not least, we're going to meet the Wetlands Center's famous alligators. Now, we have one alligator that we showed you in the pond earlier. He's 2 to 3 years old, and he's gotten very large in size. He's got some amazing adaptations that help him to live in a swampy, marshy area. And we're going to start by looking at the skull of an alligator. So when we look at the skull, you'll notice it has 2 large openings here for his eyes. And if we move just back behind it, those openings there are for their ears. He also has a very large opening on the jaw. Okay, these openings are for muscle attachment. So this animal has an incredible bite force. They can bite down with 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of pressure. Now in the closed position, their mouth isn't very strong. But if they were able to get their mouth open, this is where all the power is. They can snap down really hard and really, really fast. Now you'll also notice that the nose is located on the top of the skull. This allows the alligator to come up out of the water and only lift its nose so that it can breathe without revealing the rest of its body. Now alligators have 80 sharp teeth in their mouth. They have 40 on top and 40 on bottom. As they lose a tooth, they're going to regrow one for the rest of their life. They typically go between 2,000 and 3,000 different teeth. It's a lot of teeth to go through in their lifetime. Now that we've seen their skull, let's take a look at an actual alligator. The alligator I'm going to show today is missing a major adaptation. You think you'll be able to figure it out pretty quick. So this is another American alligator, and believe it or not, this alligator is 2 years old. But when he hatched from an egg, he was missing his tail. Now this is a common deformity in American alligators, and generally this animal wouldn't survive to be an adult in the wild. Here at the Wetlands Center, he lives in a smaller aquarium that doesn't have very much water, so that way he doesn't drown. They use their tail for swimming, so without it, he loses his balance and flips over very easily and is unable to right himself. He also has to rely on his legs like a doggy paddle to move himself through the water. Now, alligators do have webbed back feet, but this webbing isn't used for swimming. Instead, they use that webbing for walking and running on mud, which makes it really good for living in a very swampy environment. Because when we go out there and we step down in our boots sink. Their feet don't. It kind of disperses the weight of their body. Now let's take a look again at that face. Okay, we looked at it at the skull, but now let's look at his eyes. Okay, he has 3 sets of eyelids. He has one on top, just like you and I do, and he has one on bottom. So do we. He also has a clear set of eyelids called a nictitating membrane, and it acts like goggles so that he can see perfectly underwater. Now if I turn his head a little bit, sometimes he'll close it. Are you going to open your eyes back up now? There you go. Okay. So he's got his eyes, those 3 eyelids, very important. So he has really good vision above the water and excellent vision beneath the water. Now if you look even closer at the jaw, you'll see a bunch of little tiny black dots. Those black dots are called integumentary sensory organs, or ISOs. They help him to sense vibration and electrical currents in the water, which help him to find food, like fish that might be swimming nearby. Now, one of the cool things about alligator scales is that here on the back, they have bony scales called osteoderms. These bony plates are going to grow with them, and they give them that impenetrable armor that they're known for. Now you'll notice that this alligator is covered in stripes right now. These stripes will begin to fade around age 3. Typically, alligators are going to be on their own at that age. Unlike most reptiles, alligators and crocodiles have parental care, so their mother cares for them instead of just laying her eggs and leaving them. She'll actually build a mud and straw nest for her young to live in. Now, you mentioned he's missing that tail, so he's not able to swim or even initiate that death roll. He will, however, open his mouth and make an audible hissing sound, which is a warning to leave him alone. And every once in a while, he'll make a chirping sound, which is him calling for mom. So if you're ever in the wild and you hear a young alligator chirping, you probably should leave. Mom's not gonna be really happy. All right, well, we're gonna get a chance to watch our larger alligator eat in just a second. So let me put this one away and we'll be right back. Hi everyone, we are going to check out some of our animals eating. Here we have Oink, we met him earlier. So we're going to feed him a mouse, a little fuzzy. If you guys want to come closer, you'll see it's in his jaw. Snakes eat their prey head first. It allows their limbs to fold down against the animal's body and not get all hung up in the corners of the snake's mouth. And he's going to inch that left side forward and then the right side. He's going to work his way down into his throat. Let's get a good close-up on that. So you can see the jaws moving side to side. Snakes are able to eat something about as wide as the widest part on their own body. So the skin on the snake's head is very stretchy. Now remember, in the wild, this snake would most likely eat toads. That is their favorite food. But in captivity, the western hognose snake has no problem eating frozen thawed mice. You're gonna start to see that his neck is starting to get really large, and here in a moment he's gonna start squeezing his neck and making it move in a really hard S shape, and that's going to be forcing that mouse, this fuzzy mouse, down into his stomach. Now it's gonna take this snake about a week to fully digest his food, at which time he'll be hungry for another one. So snakes are kind of a great pet because you only have to feed them about once a week. So sometimes we wonder how snakes are able to breathe in this position. They have a little structure called a glottis, and they're able to move it to the side as they breathe so that he can still breathe through that breathing tube as he has a rodent stuck in his throat. So he never has to suffocate. He's able to breathe through that separate structure in the bottom of his mouth. And when his mouth is closed, that glottis connects to the nostrils, so he's able to breathe with his mouth shut. Oh, see, I think he's about to do that really sharp S motion. You can see him starting to twist just behind the head. I think this might be my favorite part of them eating. They've got this tail that sticks out the end. It looks like he's sucking down a piece of spaghetti. And there you can see he's starting to push that rodent down with his neck muscles, and it's going to go down into his stomach. And he's all done, guys. All right, we'll be feeding another snake. He's a little bit more aggressive in his feeding behavior, so that one should be fun to watch. So this is Denver. Denver is a Great Basin gopher snake, and he gets very excited at dinner time. So in just a moment, we're gonna move this mouse down into his tank, and we're gonna watch how he eats. Now in the wild, these snakes would have to constrict their prey. So they would bite them first and then wrap around them and squeeze them until they're not breathing before they started eating them. Because they're known as constrictors since they don't have venom. But he's very eager. I like that he puts it in the water. It might give him a little bit more help getting that mouse down. And again, you can see definitely that left side and the right side moving as he works this mouse down. So you can really see the glottis on him. It kind of hangs out to the side. Of course, as I say it, he's going to close his mouth up so we can't see it. That glottis again is a breathing structure that helps him to be able to swallow his prey whole. And there he goes. He's using that really strong neck muscles to help squeeze that prey down into his stomach. All right, let's see what else we can feed. All right, guys, so we're gonna feed our three-toed box turtles now. They eat a mixture of greens. So we have just a salad mix and some bell peppers. There's zucchini, some cilantro, and they love it. There's also a couple of blackberries probably mixed in here also. And so we're just gonna give them a scoop and add it in. Now in the wild, these are omnivores, so they also would eat insects probably, like mealworms, superworms, crickets. So I'm just gonna add some in here and we're gonna watch them eat up. So you can see this guy's really excited. He's already going for the plate over there. I think they all might be a little shy this morning. Now, like we talked about earlier, these turtles live in the forest, and so they would eat a mixture of plants and insects, maybe some small lizards if they could catch them. They also love to eat mushrooms in the wild, and they use their beaks to shred through it. They don't have teeth, they just have those hard keratinized beaks for eating. And while we're here, we're gonna go ahead and add some food over here with our Texas tortoises. Now, Texas tortoises are threatened in the state of Texas, which means they're starting to disappear. Most of that is due to habitat fragmentation. These tortoises live in an area in West Texas where roads are being built and they're unable to, oh, and he's just pushing all his food right off that rock. Add some more on there. But their habitat is being fragmented by the construction of roads, and they also started to notice a decline of these tortoises when the fire ant came into play here in Texas. And so they have some issues, and they are protected here in the state. Okay, so now we finally get to see our American alligators eat their feast. So they are gonna get some fish, liver, shrimp, and some chicken. And are you ready for this? It's so exciting. I'm gonna start with a piece of chicken. Now we use a stick, obviously, to keep our fingers away from their mouth. I'm gonna try and get the gator over here. One lady's way more interesting. There he goes. So alligators really don't chew their food. They grab it and then swallow it whole. We'll also be feeding some of our turtles in the water today. He's ready for more, so maybe we'll give him a couple of pieces.
We get to close.
So now I've got a piece of fish.
Coming.
The turtle's coming. He's gonna get it first. Uh-oh, I dropped it. But that's okay. We have fish in the pond today that will eat it. Let's try a piece of shrimp. Would you like the shrimp? Give me back my stick. Thank you. All right, now a piece of fish. Okay, maybe not. All right, so our turtle has gotten a chunk of fish, and that red-eared spider's gonna fight him for it. Maybe we'll give him a piece too, so that won't leave his friend alone. There we go. Now let's try and give our gator friend another piece of food. So this is liver. Maybe some chicken. Oh, nope, you're still swallowing that. Okay. That's too big for you, Musk Turtle. Let me give you something smaller. There you go. Move over here. Maybe we can get him to eat this way. You can kind of see he tilts his head up to use gravity to help slide the food down his throat. And there you have it, guys. We're going to continue to feed the animals here at our pond, and we'll get back with you guys in a little bit. Bye. All right, and here we are with Ziggy, the bearded dragon, and he's got a mixture of greens, and he has some blackberries, and there's a couple super worms on there. I'm gonna add a couple fresh ones to see if he'll eat. He's looking for him to move. Now Ziggy really likes to eat the live super worms. When he sees that movement, he uses his tongue to grab them, and he chews them up and swallows them down. Now he is an omnivore, just like we are, so he eats plants and he eats meats, just like our turtle friends. And you can really hear those exoskeletons crunching. Later, when he's really hungry, he's going to eat those blackberries, and it's the cutest thing. He'll end up with a little red face. All right, just a couple more. There we go. Oh. Here's another. All right, guys, and there you have it. You've got to see all of our radical reptiles eating their food today, and we hope to see you guys here at the Wetlands Center sometime real soon.